All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this afternoon or early evening, wherever it is that you might be domiciled or in proximity to where you live. My name is Jim Ledbetter, and I am the Senior Safety and Operations Manager for Centerline Drivers. Today, we're going to do a webinar based off, CSA scores, pre- and post-trip inspections, but we're really going to focus on a post-trip inspection and what it takes in order to help mitigate violations when you are subjected to roadside vehicle inspections. I come from the Midwest, born and raised in St. Louis, currently living in the Phoenix market now. I've been in the transportation industry, it feels like, for a very long time now. I would assume we probably all feel that way at this point. I've been in it for roughly 20 years. Prior to that, I dabbled a little bit with the degree that I obtained from the University of Missouri in psychology, and realized that probably wasn't the course of direction that I wanted to go in life. So somehow, one way or the other, I got involved in the transportation industry, and I've still pretty happy with it. So I'm still here, and it's provided a good living for myself and my family, as well as I'm sure it has for you too. I've got experience in just about every facet of the industry. You know, I've dealt with rail, refrigerated, dry van, automotive, flatbed, and curtain van assignments. And to be real honest with you, I find every facet of this industry to be, very intriguing. They're all different in nature. It takes a specific type of driver for all those different facets within our industry, and I guess that's what's kind of drawn me to stay closely involved and really in the niche of the transportation industry. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide here. Real quickly, I'm going to just kind of do an overview of what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And again, just to reiterate, there's a lot of different elements that go into a post-trip vehicle inspection. I think everybody can attest that it needs to be a very thorough and you have to be engaged. And really the most important element is that you do it the same way every single time before going out on route. I think that is the primary element that everybody needs to be focused with. If everybody can remain focused in a consistent and stay in a not necessarily a complacent manner, where you just get kind of lazy and you just do the same thing over and over again, but for the most part, starting at the same portion of the truck and trailer and really ending at the same point of the truck and trailer is probably the most important key. It's pretty stressful in today's industry in order to maintaining equipment, keeping it on the road, keeping it compliant with DOT, FMCSR, what have you. The laws are constantly changing. We're constantly evolving. And so it's very important that not only the managers but drivers also are following a process, a systematic process, in order to keep the equipment compliant and safe on the roadways. Fleet managers and, more importantly, drivers have a wide and seemingly endless array of responsibilities. I mean, let's face it, every day. I know I've sat in these hot rooms, these war rooms, where drivers are coming in and out of dispatch offices, sometimes 50 to 100 drivers a day, and it's you constantly you're seeing fleet managers handing out different pieces, different documents, different pieces of paperwork that, hey, this is required now. Hey, we need to start doing this now. Hey, on this piece of paper, you got to start initialing here, and you've got to start writing down your weights here. Your odometer reading needs to go here. There's a lot of responsibilities for drivers. Trust me, you all have a very difficult job. It's not easy. Most folks that are driving down the freeway and they're looking at these guys driving these trucks, they have no idea, unless they've been in the industry, how much you all are responsible for. Okay, So with that being said, staying on top of pre-trip vehicle inspections can feel overwhelming, right? And it is overwhelming because, back in 2010 when the CSA was implemented, it became very, very important that pre-trip inspections were carried out systematically, thoroughly, and that they're done with precise, because really if they are done in a precise method, it is going to mitigate violations. It is going to make your company, it's going to give your company a stronger CSA score. Thresholds aren't going to be superseded in the 7 basics and so forth, okay? Equipment being placed out of service, even collisions, have been major contributors when pre-trip inspections are facilitated, okay? It's not common knowledge. I know we all got full service lease providers, right? We deal with some of these folks. I'm not going to say any names, but we take a tractor in for preventative maintenance, right, over the weekend. We drop it off. We come back on Monday, and we pick up our tractor, and what happens is that you rode up 2 steer tires. Well, the steer tires might have been replaced, but maybe a lug nut, one or more of the lug nuts wasn't replaced on the front of the tractor. So it's really big. It's a big deal that we're making sure that we're looking over the equipment specifically after somebody else has touched it, okay? And I know not everybody owns their own tractor, or they work for an organization for the most part where you're assigned a tractor and nobody else touches it, right? We're all slip seating. We're all climbing in and out of the cab of that tractor. So just remember, driver A, prior to you taking over on your shift, may have removed something or did something that's going to affect you now that you're out on route. So very important that you're keeping an eye on the equipment and looking it over, okay? One thing that I tell all my people is that pre-trip vehicle inspections are non-negotiable. They're non-negotiable for me. It has to happen, okay? I can tell you this right now, I don't drive a tractor and trailer, and I don't have a CDL. And that's the first thing that a driver asks me when I'm talking to he or she in the yard, or I'm asking them questions about, what it is they're doing and where they're going today and how they plan on getting there and all these other good things in their life, how long they've been driving, etc. But nonetheless, when I'm driving my car, when I'm leaving in the morning and I get in my car, and I go out in the garage, I can certainly tell you, and I'm assuming that most of us do this, but you're looking your car over a little bit, aren't you? You're looking behind it. You're looking in front of it. I mean, you're kind of, you look at things, right? You look at your fuel gauges. You turn over your ignition. Are there any warning lights coming on in the car, etc.? This is the same situation. This is somewhat of a pre-trip inspection for someone like me, a non-CDL holder who's just going to work in the morning. So it's I consider it non-negotiable with everybody within the Centerline network. And we're well over, 1,100 drivers with our network. It has to happen consistently, okay? It does mitigate the breakdowns. It eliminates unsafe driving behaviors, and it provides a safe environment not only for you, but, for the general public on the freeways as well. A driver vehicle inspection report, DVIR, is a key part of your daily operations. I think you will all attest to that, right? The bottom line is that if you all are writing something up, it needs to get fixed, okay? So that next chain of command, your manager or managers have to ensure that that vehicle is compliant and safe to run on the American freeways and roadways. So writing the DVIR up, I mean, it's a process. It's a requirement, and it needs to remain, that book needs to remain in the truck, okay? Needs to remain with the truck. I know a lot of folks out there probably, they use a DVIR, one DVIR for both tractor and trailer. Some organizations prefer you to have a DVIR for your tractor and really just and trailer specific. So you're going to have 2 DVIRs. Or if you're driving multiple trailers, you could have 1 tractor, 4 or 5 trailers if you're pulling 4 to 5 trailers in the afternoon. Bottom line, it's important that you are looking it over, doing a pre- and post-trip inspection, jotting down all the elements on that DVIR that look unsafe. You can you want to flood your managers with communication, okay? You want to make sure they understand what's wrong with the equipment, okay? I've always told all my drivers, flood me with communication, don't leave anything out, okay? We'll determine whether or not, and our full service lease providers or our technicians will determine whether or not it's an element or an item that needs to be repaired in order to keep the equipment safe and out of harm's way of the general public, okay? So what we're basically going to do is we're going to cover 5 important components you should never overlook during a pre-trip inspection, okay? These components, they'll eliminate downtime, violations, mitigate collisions on our nation's roadways, etc. Again, to reiterate and to echo, I'm only going to talk about 5 major components, but we're all very aware that there's a whole heck of a lot more than 5 major components that go into a pre and post trip inspection, right? So before I get started here, any questions can be submitted throughout the presentation to be answered during the question and answering session of the tutorial here, okay? So the first of 5 is I always let all my folks know, never assume, okay? I got drivers that walk in the door daily, and they'll walk up to me with a roadside vehicle inspection with violations noted, and they'll say, Jim, I got pulled over, and I got some violations for, and I'll just throw some examples out there, a fire extinguisher that's not working, that's not even charged, or one of the big ones, triangles. Jim, there was no triangles in the truck. I got inspected. The officer went to the truck, didn't find any the triangles. These are some of this amongst other things, obviously paperwork, your proof of insurance, registrations, things like that. This is stuff that's not getting checked daily, okay? If you're doing that daily, kudos to you, okay? But for the most part, a lot of drivers don't remember to look at these items, okay? And what happens then is that once one of these items pops up is it's either it's inoperable or it's past its inspection date, such as the fire extinguisher, or the triangles are not even this. And basically what it does is it prompts that officer to dig deeper at this point now, okay? So what he or she is saying now is, okay, I got this driver pulled over. They don't have triangles. The fire extinguisher is not operable. What else is wrong with the truck, okay? So now it allows this officer to really dive in and probably find out that there's a lot more wrong with the truck than it just missing triangles or having an inoperable fire extinguisher. Let's put it this way. You can bring a brand new tractor off an assembly line today, okay? And you can drive it 5 miles down the road to its new domiciled park location to whoever the buyer is. In that 5-mile road trip, if that driver is to get pulled over, the tractor might have 7 miles on it. If the inspecting officer wanted to really find out something wrong with that truck and use mirrors and creepers to get up underneath it, they're going to find something wrong with the truck with 7 miles on it. So if they're going to find something wrong with a truck with 7 miles on it, they're definitely going to find something wrong with a truck that's got 70,000 miles on it, okay? So the big thing for me is I always tell my drivers is don't assume that everything's in place. Okay, we just talked about this just a few minutes ago as well. There's other people driving this truck. There's other people using this truck. There's vendors in this truck. There's your full service lease providers taking it for test runs. They may take something out of the truck. Your manager might take something out of the truck. I've seen that happen before too. Well, hey, Jim went in and he grabbed something because he needed some information off this document, but he never put it back in. And now here I am. I'm out on the road, right, as a driver, and the driver's 100% accountable after he or she leaves the yard. Not Jim, not the full service lease provider, no vendor. It's you, the driver. You're the ones responsible for this at this point. So make sure that all of your ducks in a row. Don't have an officer find something that you generally don't check, and it prompts them to dig deeper. I'm going to give you one more example here, and then we'll kind of move on. and I won't use any names, but I had a driver last week get pulled over at a roadside vehicle inspection. He didn't have his corrective lenses on. Officer asked for corrective lenses, or asked for his driver's license, I'm sorry. Officer looks at his driver's license, notices that the driver should not operate a commercial motorized vehicle without corrective lenses, okay? Well, I think everybody knows where I'm going. Driver didn't have his corrective lenses on, so inspecting officer asked him to step out of the truck. He does a complete level 2 roadside vehicle inspection, and 6 violations are noted. 2 of them he was placed out of service for, okay? So don't give the officer don't prompt he or she to dig deeper than what they're already digging when they do pull you over. Next one, number 2, ensure all your lighting is operational. Okay, this is big, and a lot of drivers are not aware of the color violation. Always ask yourself, am I in violation of color? And what I mean by that is anything on the tractor, the front of the tractor, those lights must be white or amber in color, okay? No greens, no reds, no blues. I see trucks going down the freeway around the holidays, and you see the Christmas tree or the Christmas wreath on the grill of the truck, and it's got red lights and blue lights and green lights in it. That's a violation. If you're pulled over, or I don't think you see it too much anymore, but years ago you see quite a bit of it. But just remember, anything on the front of the truck has to be white or amber in color. That goes for the headlamps, turn signals, and the cab light, the marker lights on the cab as well, okay? Make sure that they're all operational. If you have a marker light on your truck, it's got to work. You see a lot of owner-operators running up and down the freeways, and they got these big, beautiful trucks, and they probably got 80, 90 marker lights on, and it's lit up like a billboard going down the road. Well, that's fine. You can have 80 or 90 lights on your truck, but all 80 or 90 must work, okay? So the big thing that I always say is keep it simple. You don't need 80 or 90 marker lights on your truck, and if you do, I certainly hope that you're doing a very, very thorough pre-trip and post-trip inspection with that many lights on the truck. One of the biggest issues that I have, and it happens, I bet you I see 3 or 4 violations a week, is driver walks back in, he tells me he did his pre-trip inspection, yet, hey, Jim, I got pulled over, and I got a violation, roadside vehicle inspection, and I got one of my marker lights out. I said, well, what marker? You said you did your inspection. What marker light are you talking about? And it happens to be the license plate, okay? That is an element, and that is one of the features on the lighting on the trailer that is overlooked by many, many drivers. So be cognizant of that, okay? For now on, going forward, make sure that you're looking at that driver's license plate, that because on that trailer, the position where it's at, when you're bumping docks or what have you, there is always an opportunity for that wiring to become exposed to when you're bumping into docks. It gets cut, it gets spliced, excuse me, the bulb could be cracked, what have you. That is the first light to go on a trailer more times than not, just because of where the proximity of where it's located on the trailer. Like I said, you're bumping docks, or there's forklifts hitting the back down there by the ICC bumper, and a lot of times that light becomes exposed to, elements that it shouldn't be exposed to, and it gets broken, or the wiring harness gets broken. The last thing also, ensure there's no warning lights on your dashboard. If you see warning lights on your dashboard, that truck doesn't need to go out, okay? If you see warning lights on your vehicle, do you take it out? You might take it out, but you're going to be very cognizant, you're going to be very concerned, and I can certainly tell you you're going to get it fixed pretty soon, right? But for the most part, treat this truck, who you're employed with, as though it's your truck. Take ownership of it, okay? You see lights on the dashboard, there's obviously something wrong with that tractor. It doesn't need to be on the freeways, okay? And I can tell you this, if an officer does an inspection and he climbs into the cab of the truck and there's warning lights on the dashboard that are illuminated, there's going to be a violation, and more than likely an out of service. Next thing is, number 3 is check the wheel wells. Ensure that objects which might catapult freely while in transit are removed, okay? More times than not, we're talking about, tire treads and things like that. But a lot of times there's a lot of loose debris that are up in these wheel wells that we're not aware of because we're not looking at the truck. We're not walking around the equipment, and we're not inspecting it prior to getting in and taking off. This is a very, very, this here is kind of more on the life-threatening end of it too. I mean, this is where things that are being catapulted off the truck are hitting other vehicles on the freeway, and they're either causing a collision, behind you that involves just one vehicle, or it could be multiple vehicles. One of the big, and I just got a roadside vehicle inspection. It's kind of ironic that I'm talking about this, but about 5 minutes before me getting on this call, I got a roadside vehicle inspection sent to me by a manager out of the Northeast, and we had a driver that was pulled over, and he had a tarp on a flatbed that was not tied down. His excuse was, well, I'm only driving 3 miles. I'm driving 3 miles, and I'm not exceeding 20, 25, 30 miles an hour, and I'm not on a major roadway, okay? It does not matter. Had that tarp came off and then fallen, and maybe a vehicle that was following closely behind ran over that, you never know what that can cause. Vehicle damage, property damage, and really, God forbid, fatalities or injuries. So regardless of what's on a flatbed, it's got to be tied down, okay? And really, I'll tell you, when you really want to look these wheel wells over too, is specifically after the truck's been after it's had some maintenance done to it by your provider. A lot of times these technicians, they may leave tools, wrenches. I've seen oil filters left up underneath there, the used oil filter, and then they didn't take it out. They set it on something, and it came off in transit. The old, not the new filter, but the older filter. So really, again, after somebody else has touched the equipment, make sure you're looking it over. The next thing is brakes. We went through 2 ginormous brake inspections this year that the FMCSR put on. There was one in the spring, and then there was another one in the fall. The numbers were published, and for the life of me, I can't remember how many trucks were put out of service, but the number was unbelievable. How many trucks were put out of service due to bad brakes, okay? The basic thing with the brakes, again, you're not going to see everything, okay? You don't have a creeper. You don't have mirrors. You're not expected to get up under the truck and check every nook and cranny. But the big thing is when it comes to brakes is checking the basics. Check the hoses. Listen for the audible air leaks, okay? Look for chafing hoses and air lines with kinks in them. Chafing hoses, I see more chafing hoses and violations due to brakes on the steer tires, basically up there on the hoses that are up there by the steer tires. Those are generally the first hoses that they begin to chafe, and it's because of there's a lot of times you have the vibration in the truck. There's those you have the mud flaps up there that are underneath the steer tire that could be rubbing against it. There's a lot of different things that take place that can make the chafing of that hose, to take place. And really, it's one of the easiest hoses to check. First of all, if you're doing a pre-trip inspection, the hood of the truck should be popped, correct? We should be checking fluids and so forth. So real quickly, take a look at both hoses on both sides, on both those steer tires. Make sure there's no chafing, okay? A lot of times those hoses, they're going to be dirty, right? So they'll clean them off. Get a damp cloth or something and wipe it down, and just make sure that you're not seeing anything exposed, like any of the threads within the hose or anything like that. You can't see those threads, and you can't see these tears when the hose is dirty, and that hose is always going to be dirty. It's just the position that it's at. It's always going to be it's subjected to the elements from rain and dirt and water getting up underneath the hood of the truck. Most inspectors pay close attention to brake and airline adjustments, and inspectors know most drivers overlook their brakes or pencil whip the pre-trip inspection and so that's the first thing they look for is the kinks in the hoses, the air hoses, the air lines, and so forth. And number 5, I always say this is one of the biggest things right here, is really just the cosmetic appearance of your tractor, okay? The outward appearance says a lot about not only you, the driver, but the carrier as well, okay? I would say, more importantly, it says more about the driver and his or her accountability more than anything. I always ask, and I'm going to echo and reiterate something that I talked about at the beginning of the session here, but taking ownership is huge. I always ask my drivers, operate that tractor and that trailer as though your name is on the side of it. And if you do that, you're going to be successful in the organization, okay? But if you think about it, if you're driving down a freeway and you see a filthy vehicle, and you see a vehicle that's got the bumper smashed in, and it's got scrape marks down the side of it, and maybe a tail light's broken, and they got bungee cords holding the trunk down on it. What is the first thing that you generally do when you see a vehicle like that on the freeway? I can tell you what I do is I get away from it, okay? And I can tell you what else I do is I don't park next to it either when I go to Walmart. I stay away from things like that. So really, just the cosmetic appearance, the cleanliness of the tractor, you're going through an inspection, you're going through a weigh station, here comes one of those big, pretty green or orange tractors for the organization that you work for, that they're noted for those colors. Make sure that those colors are illuminated and and cosmetically they look good in appearance. The perception is everything. If you keep the tractor clean, both inside and out, I can certainly tell you right now, if you go through an inspection 10 times with a clean tractor, you'll probably get waved through 6 out of those 10 times. Go through one of those tractors go through one of those inspections with a filthy tractor. I can tell you, you're going to get pulled over every single time. The officer's going to look at it and go, well, if he or she doesn't care about the way this thing looks outside, from the external view, there's no telling what's going on underneath the hood. So let's pull them over and let's check it out, okay? Repair and manage damages to the headlamps, fenders, and side steps quickly. Don't let that stuff linger, okay? I see more times than not, how many tractors do you see with these side steps that are damaged and they just don't get fixed? That tells me if you're not facilitating repairs to your tractor, you really don't care about your equipment. If you really don't care about your equipment just because of a side step or the fender scraped or it hasn't been repaired, again, what else is going on up underneath that tractor, okay? Again, don't allow the inspector, don't prompt that person to dig deeper than what they need to be digging. And again, I always ask the question, if you were an inspecting officer and saw damages, would you ask yourself what else is wrong with the unit? That would be the first thing that I would ask myself. So that's basically the 5 key elements that I consider to be extremely important in the pre-trip inspection process. Again, I didn't touch even on a third of what we could really talk about with the pre-trip inspection process. But I do hope that, if you focus on these 5 elements, these key elements, I certainly think you're going to see some performance enhancements, from the CSA basics for both you and the carrier. So at this time, I'm going to take some questions, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to to reach out, and we'll kind of go from there. I do got one question here. How long should it take to facilitate a pre-trip inspection? And that's a good question. So everybody does that a little bit differently, right? So I don't think that there's a guarantee. There's not this set timeline that needs to take place when performing this. Again, I'll go back and I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning. The important really the most important element is that you're doing it the same way, the same time, every time. And I can tell you I've seen some inspections that I guess my question is, and I'm trying to answer this, but I'm asking questions at the same time, is can you do a pre-trip inspection in 3 minutes? Well, certainly you cannot. You cannot do a thorough, you can't do it correctly. Can you do a pre-trip inspection in 30 minutes? Yeah, you can. Can you do a pre-trip inspection in 15 minutes? Yeah, you can. I think really the adequate time to do a thorough and compliant pre-trip inspection is anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes. If you're spending 20 to 30 minutes on your equipment prior to you departing your domiciled location or your terminal, I feel that you're not pencil whipping it, but you're spending 20 to 30 minutes on that. I certainly think that is more than adequate enough time to spend on the inspection. Again, make sure that you're logging that. That needs to be part of your logging behaviors as well. I see people log pre-trip inspections on their electronic log that are 5 minutes, but they'll come back and they say, well, Jim, I just showed 5 minutes, but I actually spent 30 minutes. Well, if you spent 30 minutes, then log 30 minutes. That's what we got to do. These are some of the things that are starting to really affect drivers nowadays. Is from a time perspective, is that you log it as you do it. Okay, so if you're spending 30 minutes on it, log 30 minutes. That's the important thing. And I got one other here. Will pre-trip inspections help mitigate violations when stopped for inspection? Absolutely. I've been talking now for about 33 minutes. It looks like maybe 32 minutes, and I'm hoping that's the point that I got across here. They certainly will. Are they gonna eliminate all violations? By no means not. Like I indicated many times, and I've said this countless times probably since I've been on the call for 30 minutes, is that you're not going to capture everything that's wrong with a piece of equipment, regardless of how new or how old it is. I mean, I've already discussed that you can be operating a truck that's got 7 miles on it. If an officer really wanted to find something wrong with it, he or she will. So, but there are methods and there are ways to help mitigate and eliminate these violations. And really, the best thing to do is keep your tractor cosmetically in cosmetic, I guess, in the shape to where you're not being prompted to go through violations. Avoid the trouble, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Well, that's it. That's the only questions I got. I want to thank you for attending. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Everybody have a great day.